In the meantime, talk about how this is day 6 of the strikes that the United States military has been carrying out against Iran. And the United States launching fresh wave of these strikes, marking the 6th consecutive day of the operations amid escalating tensions between the two countries, according to the U.S. Central Command. The strikes that began 2 p.m. Eastern Time and are aimed at further degrading Iranian military capabilities. This is what the CENTCOM has also posted, which actually talks about as far as these fresh waves of strikes that are now being conducted on part of the U.S. military. And when we are now looking at against Iran, which the CENTCOM says to further degrade the Iranian military capabilities, where the U.S. forces have redirected at least 3 commercial vessels that they say were attempting to bypass the naval blockade, disabling one non-compliant ship and boarding the other in Gulf of Oman. Now, Iranian media have also been talking about as far as the first suspected U.S. attack on a bridge in Bandar Khamir region. Alongside, we are looking at the explosions that have been reported across southern Iran. Let's in the meantime take a look exactly what CENTCOM has now posted. They go on to say that the United States, which has launched a 6th consecutive night of strikes against Iran to further degrade the Iranian military capabilities. And this is now coming across as far as the Vice President, J.D. Vance, has also been accusing of, when it comes to funding campaigns, that we are now looking at as far as the negotiations, that it is still not clear if the talks that have been happening, because this is something which President Trump on his own have been given statements that Iran is desperate for talks. Let's connect with Akansha on this. Akansha, good morning. 6th straight day of strikes that have been conducted by the U.S. military.
Well, absolutely. A very good morning to you too and our viewers. Amita, this is a 6th night in a row, clearly reaching a week now, ever since the fresh bout of fighting has begun. And as you rightly highlighted, this time around, the U.S. CENTCOM now targeting civilian infrastructure, especially in southern Iran's Bandar Abbas. That also includes power facilities, even a train station. You mentioned the Khamir port. So we are being told that 2 bridges near Khamir port have been targeted, as a result of which local authorities are saying that 2 people even died. Bandar Abbas continues to get pounded, also experiencing continued attacks by the Americans. Sirik, another city that is critically important because, remember, it oversees the Strait of Hormuz, is also witnessing continued airstrikes by the Americans.
Yes.
And railway infrastructure is reportedly being targeted near Bandar Abbas. The airport in Iran Shahar airport was also attacked, and the damage was reported there. So clearly, as you can see, Iran now coming in the line of fire is the civilian infrastructure, something we had seen the earlier time around as well. But the military confrontation between Tehran and Washington is only escalating further, with civilian infrastructure being damaged, and also 40 persons is the death toll, which Iran's health ministry has already shared in the second round of fighting since 6 days.
Yes, because the Iranian side seems to be also warning the U.S. that it would retaliate if its infrastructure is targeted in American strikes. Meanwhile, President Trump has also been warning that the U.S. will target Iranian infrastructure if the negotiations do not resume. Let's, in the meantime, also listen into the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt on what she has to say on part of the devastating strikes that she says that the U.S. military has been carrying out in southern parts of Iran in particular, and saying that talks have to resume because it is on the Iranian side which did not keep up with its promise of the MOU.
Well, I've spoken with the president about this as recently as an hour ago. Iran very much continues to talk to the United States of America and express that they want to make a deal with us because they are suffering devastating blows on behalf of our United States military. The reason, and this is important for the American people to understand, the reason for the recent strikes over the course of the last several days is because Iran violated the Memorandum of Understanding that we struck with them. Specifically, in the Memorandum of Understanding that they signed, they were not to fire on commercial vessels moving through the Strait of Hormuz. And unfortunately, they have made the tragic decision for them to do that. And President Trump is not going to sit by and allow these acts of terrorism to take place in the Strait without ensuring Iran pays consequences for that, and that's what we are witnessing right now.
Well, the retaliation on the Iranian side is something that we are still looking at as far as U.S. bases that have come under continuous strikes within the Gulf region, and this seems to be another wave of strikes that Tehran seems to have carried out when we are looking at these pictures that have been also coming in, which clearly talks and of this military base in Bahrain that has been targeted, where helicopters and P-8 maritime reconnaissance aircraft that was stationed there. Meanwhile, air raid sirens have been sounded across Kuwait, as well as the country's military says that it was been intercepting Iranian missiles and drones that was headed towards its airspace. So, Akansha, this seems to be another wave of retaliation also on the Iranian part, but mainly this time, I mean, we are not seeing that other countries, like in the previous phase of the conflict, it was extended to the larger parts of the Gulf region. Mainly what we are looking at military bases of the United States in Bahrain and Kuwait that have come under repeated attacks.
Oh, absolutely. You're spot on that this time we are not hearing of the other West Asian allies to the United States, like, say, UAE, Saudi Arabia. Yes, Qatar has been targeted, but not as frequently as it was in the last round of fighting. So particularly, if you look at it, it is Kuwait, it is Bahrain, and to an extent Jordan also that has been attacked. And the attacks have been clearly directed towards the military installations, the naval air bases in Bahrain, particularly the U.S. Fifth Fleet has been targeted. So the idea is to destroy any of the drone hangar facilities, their military installations, their refueling stations, all of them are being targeted by Iran. Tehran is extremely livid because, remember, the U.S. attack has also forced some 200 cancer patients to evacuate a cancer hospital in southwestern Iran. This happened yesterday, which Tehran has called extremely barbaric. And with this entire, the kind of the nature of the attacks that's expanding by the hour for the United States, where civilian infrastructure facilities like bridges, stations, even, say, a cancer hospital, that's not going to go down well with Tehran. And even more so if U.S. is looking towards de-escalation, that's not going to happen, even though, as we just heard, the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirmed that the U.S. President has told her that the talks are very much on and the Iranians want a deal. We do not know who to believe because the narrative or the rhetoric coming out on social media from the Iranian leadership, whether it is the Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, the Iranian Parliamentary Speaker Mohammad Ghalibaf, the rhetoric is very different. It's very confrontational in nature. Yeah. And but the difference this time around is that there were no talks. The last time around there was a war. But the talks are very much on, which perhaps we do not know how to read. Is this good or bad? Because the MOU certainly has collapsed.
Absolutely, because if they are engaging with talks and dialogues, and exactly with whom, that is still pretty much vague. But both sides have been also, shifting the blame on each other for violating the memorandum, the peace memorandum that has been signed between the two. Now, on part of the United States, it says that, carrying out another wave of strikes inside Iran. And this time we are now looking at a bridge in Bandar Khmir County, and also we are now looking at a key transport link that connects with Bandar Abbas. So that seems to be, as far as the major Iranian ports, this is in particular southern Iran, Akansha, that we are speaking of. And there are reports also suggesting that there have been power outages there. So that indicates that even civilian infrastructure have now come under attack.
Right. And there is a strategy behind the U.S. CENTCOM, in fact, targeting southern Iran. As we were talking about, say, let's also take into consideration Syriac. It's critically important because it's overseeing, the Iranian operations in the Strait of Hormuz. That is continuous, facing continuous attacks. Bushehr happened nuclear power plant. It's also reported similar incidents. Two bridges, like you rightly highlighted, near Khmir port have been targeted. So all of these port areas adjoining the Strait of Hormuz are very critical. And if the CENTCOM is targeting these port cities, is also to degrade IRGC's own capability to target the commercial vessels that are transiting the Strait of Hormuz. That is what the U.S. CENTCOM is saying, that this time around the fighting has not happened because of anything but IRGC's capability to target innocent commercial cargo vessels, and that is what the U.S. CENTCOM is stating. Of course, the narrative has been muddled by the U.S. President declaring that he'd be levying that 20% toll fee, and then hours later making a sharp U-turn on that front. So we'll have to see what is going to de-escalate, even if the talks are on. Can Pakistan, can Qatar, Oman play a critical, crucial role this time around as well, given that Qatar and Oman have also been targeted in this round of fighting? But we'll have to see how far this goes, given that the damage to civilian infrastructure will only escalate the situation further for Tehran.
Absolutely. And to repair and to reconstruct, it's going to take probably years for them. But mainly what we are talking about, the regions in southern Iran that have come under continuous attacks. That includes Bandar-e-Khamir region alongside explosions across southern Iran, including on Keshma Island and others in Bushehr and Ahvaz as well. For the moment, thank you very much, Akansha, for joining us here on the broadcast. In the meantime, we head into a very short break.